Here are Cardle and Woolley.
His research and writings have been cited by the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Times, even the New York Times. Demian Brady is with the National Taxpayers Union. He's been looking at some things developing before Congress. Specifically, the Senate's already passed something called the No Corruption Act. The House is working on it, and it has something to do with former members of Congress who have been convicted of crimes using our taxpayer dollars to collect their pensions and the like. Demian, appreciate you joining us. Appears something good is actually happening, or fairly logical, which we like to point out here on the Cardle and Woolley Show. Appreciate you joining us, and give us your update and analysis, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, so this goes back to 2007. There was all kinds of controversy because lots of big names in Congress were sitting in jail and collecting a lot of high-value pensions, even though they were in jail and had been corrupted. So that year in 2007, Congress passed a law that said members who are in jail, convicted of certain crimes, especially corruption-related, shouldn't be getting taxpayer-funded pensions. And then that was followed up with another law in 2012 called the Stock Act, which is Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge. That added to the list of crimes that would require a member to lose their pension. But unfortunately, there is a bit of a loophole in the law because the members do not actually lose their pension until they are finally convicted. That phrase means that as long as they have any outlets for appealing their case, they can remain eligible for their pension, which can be very exorbitant, especially considering they could be collecting these inside of a federal prison. So this law that was unanimously passed, or this proposal that was unanimously passed by the Senate last week, would close off that loophole. So a member would lose their pension right upon conviction, but it also includes an important constitutional protection of their rights. If they are successful in appealing their convictions, they would get the full amount owed them. So it balances taxpayers' interests and also legal rights.
Well, I'm kind of curious about the idea that the Senate, under the leadership of Chuck Schumer, has unanimously passed this. It was a bipartisan bill by Senator Rosen of Nevada, a Democrat, and Rick Scott, a Republican of Florida. Seems kind of curious that the Senate and Chuck Schumer is maybe doing some PR work, shall we say, for the parties there to show that they're doing something. Is this really a serious, with teeth in it, piece of legislation?
Yeah, it's as I said, it's a really simple reform that would protect taxpayer rights and stop money going to former members of Congress who have violated the public trust. So, yeah, we commend Senators Rosen and Senator Scott of Florida for working together on this. And, not one person in the Senate opposed it. So now we move over to the House. I mean, it seems like a pretty common sense reform. We should be able to get it through there. We certainly hope.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how serious that the members of the House will take it. I mean, you've got Nancy Pelosi in the House who has traded on her government service to become very rich. You've got Maxine Waters, who has done the same thing. Some of these people, even Joe Biden, has all these vacation homes that he's gotten through outright corruption and may be impeached about it. Can we get this through the House?
I think we have a good chance. It might get mixed up with another issue where people are concerned about members of Congress trading in individual stocks. So I don't know if that's going to be a detour for this, or maybe they can combine a reform package. But I mean, this is something that they ought to just be able to work on outright. Get this reform passed on its own without including it in other packages that might create more complexity and controversy for members of Congress. I mean, as it is, it's a really simple reform that everybody ought to be able to get behind. And a lot of the members who are in Congress now voted in the past for those two reform laws that added to the crimes that would lead to a loss of a congressional pension.
Well, Damian, I think that the name of that act tells you how serious they're taking it in Congress. The Stop Trading of Insider Knowledge Act of 2012. This is 2023. They don't want this bill.
Right. Well, yeah, this was now called this version is called the No Corruption Act. It has gotten through the House committee before, but then it stalled on the floor. We'll be our colleagues and other taxpayers will be contacting the members of Congress and urging them to enact the simple reform.
And you're talking about some significant money. As a former staffer on Capitol Hill myself, I know members of Congress make just short of $190,000 a year or something. You can set aside up to 7%, I believe, of your salary that's matched dollar for dollar by the federal government, by our taxpayer dollars. So what you're talking about here can, before too long, be hundreds of thousands of dollars, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Once a member of Congress has served for at least 5 years in Congress, they become eligible for a pension. And Representative Chaka Fatah, for his time in office, earned an annual pension of starting out at $55,000, and then it's adjusted annually for the cost of living allowance, which is going up quite a bit with inflation. So the costs are going to mount for this over the years. So Chaka Fatah is a member who was convicted and has never lost out on his pension.
And I keep thinking, Damian, about the guy that occupies the White House. I refuse to call him president, but his name is Joe something or other. There's a lot of talk now, even from Kevin McCarthy, about impeaching him. If this guy is impeached, and by some miracle of politics, the Senate decided to actually enforce the law, would this affect him, or would Joe Biden, being impeached, convicted, thrown out of office, still be able to collect money and have Secret Service protection for the rest of his life?
That's a good question. I do not think that an impeachment through Congress would impact his eligibility for his congressional pension for all his decades of service in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. And then there's separate provisions for the presidency, and I'd have to look back into that and see how that would be impacted through impeachment.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. We're talking about government corruption. A great deal of it right now seems to be at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, if this guy took that $5 million bribe from Burisma, the energy company in Ukraine, and he is impeached and removed from office, does that get him off the hook then, Damian, for illegally accepting a bribe from another country, or do criminal charges follow?
I think that you would have to go through the courts to process the violations of the law. I think impeachment pertains to removal from office, and then you have to follow that up with legal indictments.
And then, of course, you've got Nancy Pelosi, whom I mentioned earlier. She's been asked at news conferences about this insider trading, and she does not want to give that up. How are you going to convince members of the House to give that up? They get rich off of it.
Yeah, there is a reform that's been introduced. I don't remember if it's bipartisan or not, but it would require that members in Congress have to put their investments into a blind trust. Because, yeah, as you noted, Nancy Pelosi, her trading record is a world beater. If everyone had access to the investment decisions she's making, everyone would be a lot better off. So there is good consideration for enacting some reforms, because members of Congress are not like the regular members of the public. They have hearings and access to all sorts of information that's not publicly available. So there's a good cause to consider a blind trust for and preclude investments in individual stocks by members of Congress.
But Damian, these are special people. I mean, they're not like you and me. These are members of Congress. Yeah, we should roll out a red carpet so they never have to walk on the pavement or the grass. I mean, these are very special people, and they think so, don't they?
Yes, they've given themselves some very exorbitant perks. We're trying to peel back the perks from going to certain members of Congress who've been convicted for corruption. So we certainly have our work cut out for us. And There's opportunities to raise awareness to this because it seems to happen several times a year where a member gets caught up in some legal issue.
Yeah, and the only thing that I dislike about this legislation, because I'm giving you all the credit here for helping push this through, but I think it should be further reaching. For example, Pete Buttigieg is not in Congress, but Pete Buttigieg has been abusing his travel privileges. He's taken long periods off for maternity leave. They were just ridiculous. Hasn't done his job at all. I would like to see this extended to the swamp as well.
Yeah, there's definitely oversight needed for these department chiefs and the opportunities that they have to travel on the public dime.
Perhaps a next step down the road, Lynn Woolley.
Yes, and I want to ask Mr. Cardle if we can get this same bill passed at the state level as well. All right, Demian Brady,
yes.
We appreciate your time. National Taxpayers Union Foundation, good work on getting this through, and let's just keep pushing for ethics reform in Washington. And thank you for being with us.
Yes, sir, I agree 100%. Thank you.